You briefly touched on education in your talk. Can you tell us a little bit more how you think, if it becomes a fact in Australia and other places that marriage is redefined, how will it affect education?
Yeah, well, if marriage is redefined, then sex education has to change. And we've already seen in the United States, in Massachusetts, for instance, they have produced primary school children's storybooks of King and King, two men, fairy story who got married and they're kissing, and this is available to children. So children are being indoctrinated in homosexual ideology from a very, very young age. Now, I think most parents would want to have something to say about that being taught to primary school children. I mentioned in my talk the Safe Schools program that's in Australian schools right now, and this is even before we have same-sex marriage. It is shocking. The things that I mentioned today are just part of it. I could say much more about it. Myself and my team at Australian Christian Lobby, as we've researched this and discovered more on their websites of this material in schools, we've taken it up to politicians. Everyone is shocked. We've done media interviews on it, but again, we haven't got it to a critical mass where we've got a public outcry, but we hope by next year we can, and we will keep campaigning on this, because what they're telling young people is diabolical. Many young people go through stages of confusion about their sexuality during adolescence, but the statistics show that if you leave kids alone, most of them will work through that period of confusion. But to introduce kids to this gender theory, and it is gender theory, at a young age is deeply confusing and I think potentially damaging, because if young people who take the advice of some of the things that I mentioned in my talk, and that causes long-term physical consequences, damages their breasts or causes infertility, then who's liable for that? In fact, we were so concerned, we engaged a lawyer to give us a professional legal advice on it, and he said that the government had a liability if a child was harmed as a result of taking the advice of this material, which is in schools now. So sex education is a real issue with this whole agenda.
Yeah, and specifically you are talking about gender reassignment, so-called changing your gender. Right?
Yeah, well, this is the things I've just mentioned now. This transgender stuff is being introduced into our schools right at this minute, and it's very concerning. If a young person followed this through, and certainly the material in the school isn't advocating surgery at this point, but it's advocating these other things that I've mentioned. But later in life, someone may well do that, and that of course has big consequences. We know this is gender theory. No one can change their biology. If you are born a man, you have male chromosomes. They can do tests on your bones 100 years after you're dead, and it will tell you whether you're a man, no matter how much surgery or hormones you might have taken to try and make yourself be a woman. Now, I don't think many people realise this, and yet this is being encouraged more and more in our popular culture, and now has found its way into our school curriculums.